I welcome once again all of you eminent speakers and eminent panelists. The purpose of this webinar is that we are uniting like-minded people from all over the world, amazing people like you who can join us and take this movement on a very large scale. And many people from across the globe, from India, are joining us for this and next panel and to next panel. We are having this series of webinars. And my mission is to ignite everybody for human rights and sustainable development goals. And I really want that each and every person should know and implement in their lives. Last year, I have covered more than 1 million people, and this year also I am planning to have more than that. Hope we will do that and achieve this goal. Basically, for the audience, I just want to brief what are human rights because it's very important to know them. In 1948, after the Second World War, there was a lot of destruction and lot of losses of lives and properties. Millions of people die, and then everybody, all the countries decided that enough of destruction and loss of life. We should do something which can be a peace movement for everybody and for all countries. And then in 1948, the document, the most important document, most beautiful document written on this earth was formed. That is UDHR, United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this contains 30 articles which cover everything of the world and every country in it. And all member nations follow the rules of these 30 articles. These 30 human rights are most important in our life to implement. We should implement in our life, save ourselves for human rights, and we should also safeguard for others. So this important document has 30 human rights and 30 articles. This 29 number article right now we are going to discuss, and that is responsibility. Because everyone wants that this is my right, this is my right. What about the responsibility? We should all be responsible. We should play our role as our existence in this society and give back something better, something best to the society. So this is what our mission is, that we should give back something to the society. So uh, two women at this panel are really the first woman in UP, the first female editor of Hindustan Times, Miss Aaron. She's the first woman in UP, so I am really appreciating her efforts and congratulations for this. And there is another woman who has done wonderful things, and she is the first woman in UP as Director General of Police Human Rights. So welcome, ma'am, and Suruchi Agarwal, ma'am, the youth and my inspiration, because I always been inspired when I see such young age she has achieved so much. And Adam, our mentor, he is senior and he is very knowledgeable man. Thank you very much, all of you, to join this panel. And let's carry on with the presentation of Adam. Adam, please come forward and give your presentation.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that it's an honor to be here this evening. And I want to present to you not only my thoughts and representations on the topic of the UN SDGs and the UN Declaration of Human Rights, but also my hand of friendship, because it is in universal friendship and in joyful collaboration, peace and harmony that our journey towards global cooperation begins. And that universal goodwill, which opportunities like this one can greatly accelerate, is the starting point for all of the complex and technical challenges that we face together. Now, many years ago, a wise man here in New Zealand, who I interviewed for my subsequent book about New Zealand and its future, as seen by well-known people here, was the world's leading expert on veterinary public health. And that involves both animal welfare and a reduction in the transmission of diseases from animals to humans. And that is, of course, a subject that has become topical in the light of the origins of COVID-19. So this man was credited with all but obliterating leptospirosis in New Zealand. And that's very important because this country has a strong reliance on dairy farming and the exporting of beef. But he attributed his success in reducing that transmissible disease to reaching out to all sorts of people across New Zealand's farming sector, rural community, meat workers, and so forth, without any sense of snobbery or social prejudice. Irrespective of his high standing in the academic world, he just spoke to everybody and consulted everybody. Now, as a result of that whole experience, he gave me this advice: if I can understand the concept, then the facts are logical. So to address all of the challenges and the intricacies and the minutiae, that begins with an overview perspective. It begins with a vision. It begins with the whole object and a sense of totality. So my contribution to this, and please forgive me because I have not been entirely sure of what the meeting was fully about. So please forgive me for at the beginning giving a lot of information too early. But my prelude to the heading into which I've inserted my Irish heritage, the premise of my talk is, in order to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, we must not mention the UN SDGs or the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights exclusively. We must ask the wild sense.
Thank you very much, Adam. I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are there any special measures being taken during COVID-19 pandemic in New Zealand which will affect UN SDGs?
New Zealand was leading the way in the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, UNDRIP, by the Ministry of Māori Development having a declaration plan. So way ahead of that, and New Zealand was quite well ahead of other countries on that conversation. Canada was like sort of seen as behind, and then they hit a stumbling block. Unfortunately, with COVID-19 going into lockdown, we sort of slightly slowed down on that. But then if you look at the other UN SDGs, one thing that COVID-19 has done is it's fashioned what we call a team of 5 million people. So in order we had the goal to eliminate COVID-19 because 80,000 people could have died had we followed a certain trajectory. So the good thing to answer your question about COVID-19, even though it's quite frightening for a small country this size, is that it has created a sense of solidarity. It's created a sense of looking after people, protecting jobs, housing the homeless, and so forth. That is at complete variance with neoliberal economic policies that have been largely in place in New Zealand for the past 30 years.
All right. Thank you very much, Adam. Nice hearing you, and hope we meet again soon. Miss Aaron, now this is your presentation because I want to take it alphabetically. So okay. You are the next. You are the next. So please welcome Miss Aaron for her presentation.
Thank you. This is a layman's presentation. So
no, it's perfectly all right. Whatever comes from an editor, it has to be something we should listen.
So I'll start with an incident. It was in the 1980s sometime when a chief minister called a very senior leader a traitor. Now, he had the right to speech, right to expression, but was he delivering his responsibility? Was he being a responsible politician? Because traitor is a word, and the politician against whom he had used the word had played a very important role in the country's freedom struggle. So to call him a traitor, here I think it's the best example of where we talk about our rights and we talk about our responsibilities. I think when was it? When Kennedy talked about country, the rights and the responsibilities. Gandhiji also said about rights, and also he talked about that it depends on the performance of the duties. It's not the exact quote, but I'm just giving a gist of it. But when did we last hear about responsibilities? Our entire conversation weaves around rights. Now, there are different types of rights, and I think human rights is one word which is most used and abused. It is abused because people are not
Very true.
performing their responsibilities. So when we talk about let's take a home. Why go to a society? Today we are caught in a me, my, mine syndrome. We don't tell children this is your responsibility. You have a right to have good education, you have a right to have a good family life. Everything is their right, but you should be responsible citizens. That's not there. So we have to debate. You take any right. You take right to equality, right to discriminate, dignity, living with dignity, or there should not be any discrimination. We have been making amendments in the constitution. We said, okay, caste is one major discriminatory factor. So we decided to, okay, we will not call anybody untouchable, and we brought that SC/ST Act in India to ensure that the downtrodden and the Dalits are allowed to walk around in a public space. They were banned from entering temples. But what happened after some time? There were cases of abuse of that law to fix people of upper caste. So whenever we talk about rights, we always see that right, I would like to talk about children. We talk about child rights. We have laws that there should not be any child labor, but then we have it. It is the right to education, but we have reservation. You see, everywhere, every step when you talk about rights, there are responsibilities, and without responsible citizenship, you can't have any right. Nobody can have. Take, for instance, the women. Now, so many, we talk about dignity. Look, for her own freedom to visit a temple, enter a temple, she has to knock the doors of the High Court and the Supreme Court. Because there were certain religious practices which were very regressive, and they continued. They were there. We never thought of it. Why a woman can't enter a temple? So it is her right. It's her freedom of religion and speech and everything practices. But somewhere it was responsibility. Right to food, right to education, right to healthcare, right to. But what about your responsibilities? It is something that has to start from every home, and then it enters the society and the political world. We talk about adhering to law, but when the lawmakers are violating it, it is their duty to enforce law, but they themselves break laws. So I think what is important, I would like to just ask all of you to introspect. Is there any group that advocates duty, responsibility? We have so many groups which are talking about human rights. Even when some people were being hanged for brutally raping a woman, some few voices were heard about human rights of the culprits. We do hear about human rights. There are organizations promoting human rights at various levels. In the court of law, people are discussing, yes, there are rights, we are fighting for rights. I think in the Supreme Court also there has been some discussion about duties. But I think it's time we further define those duties, because we have entered a new era. The time when the human rights were written, they had also said they are not unlimited, the duties are there, responsibilities are there. But the times have changed, and moral responsibility has been taken over by my rights and my rights and my rights. I think we need some duties, responsibilities to be more specifically defined. We need organizations that promote, and perhaps the discussion should not remain to forums. It should come, say the government should be discussing about it, people should be discussing about it as we discuss about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a question for you, Farron. It was wonderful presentation, and yes, of course, there should be a reform in the system, and there should be altogether a new era with new ideas and new implementations in life. Basic thing is this: we should implement these rules in our own life, because anything starts from within. So let's portray to people that yes, we are implementing in our life, then only we can convince others. So thank you very much. And the question is, how can the media help in promoting human rights and sustainable development goals 2030 in India?
As for human rights, I think media has been playing its role. There's no doubt about it. It's high time they start talking about responsibilities and duties. And also, when we talk about freedom of expression, freedom of speech, I think the media also becomes a victim. And I'm talking about media, I'm talking about authors, everybody, whosoever writes, whosoever speaks, whosoever has an opinion. Because now, today, freedom of speech has got a different definition altogether. If you
Right.
say anything against authority, it was earlier also. We
Hmm.
had emergency, we have seen it then also. Now also, sedition cases are slapped because you have criticized the system, the policies. That's the freedom a citizen should have and enjoy. Coming to your other thing, that how what media can, you see, media is today not confined to one individual, one newspaper, or one channel. In today's era of social media, every citizen has become a journalist, because there's so much of news that's coming on, basically on the social media, on the social platforms. So I feel that when we are talking about media, we should also include the social media part where anybody is posting anything. And what are we hurting? We are hurting right to privacy. We are hurting so many rights of people. So, as I said, that there is a need to reframe or look at the constitution, look at our laws. It's also because we have entered, the technology has invaded our bedrooms. So, it's high time we also decide where the responsibility, what a responsible citizen has to do. Respecting a person's privacy is something very, very important. As long as, I'll add one thing, the privacy of politicians does not interfere with their public work. I hope you
Yes.
understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes.
If they don't want media to enter the bedrooms, they should keep their bedrooms away from the public space. That's
True.
it. So I think everybody is responsible. We certainly have a lot of responsibility, and you will see that of late, in the last few years, the focus has shifted to stories like hunger, health, education, environment, subjects which were not covered earlier. It was page one used to be in India, used to be politics, politics, politics. But today, I think we are talking about education, we are talking about cleanliness, we are talking about garbage, we are talking about a lot of things, and your most of the starvation deaths, farmers' deaths, they have been reported by media, and then a lot of research was done and all that. So I think media has a very important role. They are playing their role. They can do better. But here, all of you have a role. All of you who is using social media has to be a responsible person and use it responsibly.
Yes, very right. Thank you very much for this beautiful presentation. And you are, of course, very right that every one of us has a responsibility. We should be responsible citizens. And the mission for having this forum is to unite all like-minded people to make the voice so strong that everyone should listen to it. So it's not only India, we are going to cover the whole world.
Thank
So you are one of the most important chain in this group. So be always with us as a mentor, as an advisor, and we all would love to listen to you again in some other panel. So thank you very much. Now alphabetically next is Mrs. Suruchi Agarwal, ma'am. Please present your presentation.
Thank you so much. A very good afternoon and good evening to all.
Thank
And
you.
actually, before I start, I would like to thank you for initiating this discussion on such an important topic. In fact, as has been rightly pointed out, rights was something which was being talked about by everyone, but responsibilities is a subject which is very less talked about. So, thanks so much for initiating discussions around responsibilities as well. And one thing which I would like to confess is when you said that the panel discussion is about responsibility, the very first thing that came to my mind were the Sustainable Development Goals. You know that SDGs are very close to my heart,
Yes.
and I see SD, like human rights lying at the core of the Sustainable Development Goals. Without achieving, without speaking about the basic premise of human rights, we can't be speaking about sustainable development goals or to achieve them for that matter. In fact, like they are one such goals which span across the entire spectrum from poverty to health related issues to sanitation to urban settlements to global ecosystems. Like everything is covered in this ambit. And since like today we are also grappling with the COVID situation, the entire spectrum has taken a different lens, and the world all over is going through very testing times. And this is a time of test not just for we as an individual, but also for the societies, for the government, for the communities, for everyone. It's a testing time. It has actually exposed the fragility and the interconnectedness that the businesses, the society, and the nation has. And I indeed feel that we all need to come together to be like discussing about these rights and the associated responsibilities with it. In fact, like it's these unprecedented times that basically which the entire world is facing, and it is core is a global public health emergency that we are facing. But at the same time, what I also feel is like the COVID response, the COVID crisis is not just a health-based response, it's also a humanitarian crisis. It's also a development crisis. And in view of this exceptional situation that we all are facing, the immediate focus should be on preserving life, on basically that we need to, for which we need to adopt extraordinary measures. We have seen extensive lockdowns happening. We have seen movements being restricted, which has also limited access to many of things. We have seen the basic necessities not being fulfilled. We have seen like how people's livelihoods have been impacted. So, also the access to healthcare, because the entire focus has been on COVID-related response. While there have been ailments which were pre-existing, like the non-COVID ailments that had always existed, and people do require healthcare access and healthcare systems to access pre-existing ailments. So we also see impact on food, water, sanitation, work, education, even our leisure is being impacted because the leisure is also equally important for the health of our well-being. So basically, I would say that it's just not a health-related crisis; it's also a humanitarian and a development crisis, and we need to work in solidarity and cooperation with each other. And the impact, if we see it from the human rights lens, it puts a focus on how it is affecting people on the ground, particularly the most vulnerable among us, and gender not to be left behind. And guaranteeing human rights for everyone is, of course, a challenge, not just for our country, but across the world. And the challenge is actually varying across different degrees in different parts of the country. Within the country, also, we see the degrees varying. Uh, it's basically becoming not ju- is becoming an economic and a social crisis where human rights lie of at the core, and they are also being violated. It's about protecting the health and the social systems that we are all living in. And alongside this public health response, I think the world over needs to also focus on the economic and social impacts of the crisis, and the impact that not only the disease itself has come out with, but also how basically we can combat it so that we don't see many such epidemics. Like the world over, we have seen Ebola pandemic, we have seen Zika pandemic. Like there have been many experiences that the world has grappled through. So, how basically we can come up with measures that can make us more prepared, more resilient toward epidemics, so that we can grapple with the situation more effectively. I understand that there has been a lot of instability, a lot of fears among the public because, like, and it's usual, it's normal that these pandemics come up with this sort of a problem, and they augment the existing human rights concerns as well. But it's always like apart from the COVID crisis, as Sunita ma'am has rightly mentioned, we have also seen discrimination against certain groups, hate speeches, xenophobia, we have also seen attacks and forced returns of refugees. We have seen mistreatment of migrants. We have also witnessed gender-based violence. In fact, I was going through a report from the National Commission on Women. They said 60% increase in cases which are being reported against women because they have now been locked down with the family. They have no place to go. And the men are losing their jobs, so they're getting all the more frustrated and violent. There have been limited access to healthcare rights as well. And of course, the fear and frustration that that has been caused by this overt or subtle racial abuse is hitting hard, hitting very hard, and the entire human race is being hit by this. I think I am really grateful that you initiated this discussion with the focus on responsibility, which is very apt at this hour, and it relies at the forefront of realization of the rights that we all have and the responsibility that is sort of associated with it, so that we can be on track. SDGs is something which is not which just the United Nations is committed to. It's also something that all the 193 member states are committed to. And if we are trying to achieve those sustainable development goals by 2030 and we are facing crises as well, so how basically can we bridge the gap so that we don't lose our target date of 2030? So that's what I would like to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this beautiful discussion and overall a very nice overview of all things and informatory, lecture what you have said, and so much data into it, which made us realize things. And let us all unite together and do something great for this society. And I'm sure. And whenever I meet Miss Suruchi Agarwal, I get a very good energy from her. So because at this age, what she has achieved, we all should, learn from her. That is very
Thank
important.
you so much. All people like you are all my inspiration. Thank you.
So there's a question comes to you. Human rights are synonymous with human responsibility. To what extent do you agree with this?
I would say completely 100%. If there's something more than 100%, I agree with this. In fact, the Universal Declaration, which you made a point about, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it concentrates on the right that every person has by virtue of just being born. Because we are born, we have those human rights, and these have been granted to us just because we took birth on the earth. And if we talk about the corollary to rights, it's actually duties. And we all have this duty to other people that we should protect their rights, we should protect their freedom. And it's not just the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I would say. Also, if we see in our country, the Constitution guarantees 6 fundamental rights, but the duties that are associated with it are 17. So you see, while we have just 6 fundamental rights, we have 17 fundamental duties associated.
Yes, so everything covered in human rights and sustainable development.
Exactly.
Yes.
In fact, even as was also pointed out earlier, rights are not unlimited. But the duties are always, because for each and everything we have whatever acts we do, we have a duty associated with it. And if they were social balance and harmony, if they weren't, then social balance and harmony would have been sort of impossible to achieve. Basically, it also links the exercise of rights with the interest that the world community has. So I would say that we need to acknowledge and we should stand in solidarity when it comes to protecting others' rights, because it is our duty. It is our duty to protect their rights, and we should stand up for each other and for all the people who, in the face of sort of dehumanizing injustice, cannot stand up for themselves. So it's completely our responsibility.
Thank you very much. Now it is the turn of our dearest Supapa Sanyal ma'am. Your presentation, please.
Thank you, Dr. Zaidi, for having me on the panel, and a warm welcome to the other panelists as well as our viewers across the world. So, over the years, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that became a benchmark and a gold standard for so many international protocols, human rights laws across the world, the SDGs, and even for constitutions around the world. Like in India, the fundamental rights which are guaranteed under the Constitution, the directive principles of state policy, several rights-based laws that came onto the scene in due course, and even the Charter of the National Human Rights and the State Human Rights Commissions, they've actually drawn heavily on the UDHR. I mean, that's for sure. So broadly, I think the document talks about the natural and inalienable rights of human beings, just for the reason, for the logic that they've been, as Suruchi said, they've been born as human beings. So that is there. But I've always felt that the jewel in the crown, in fact, the stone of the entire UDHR is Article 29, which you have rightly put your finger on, because this is one article which talks so succinctly about the duty and responsibilities. It doesn't say much, but it says a lot. When you read, you can read a lot of meaning into it. So I have looked at this topic at two levels. One at the macro level, that is at the state level, and one at the micro level, that is our day-to-day interaction. So at the state level, what happens? At the state level, the state guarantees, the state guarantees to the citizens certain basic rights so that they are able to achieve their maximum potential. And in turn, it becomes the duty of the citizens to maintain these rights and follow certain rules and regulations so that these rights are, that they are able to enjoy these rights. Unfortunately, however, and across the world, this is a global phenomenon which we are seeing. The states are actually trampling upon the rights of the citizens, sometimes through racism, sometimes through ethnic cleansing, sometimes through gender discrimination, religious persecution, and whatnot. And so on and so forth. The trampling continues on the rights, on the basic human rights of citizens. And I feel the world actually needs leaders who are more empathetic, who are compassionate, and who actually can stand in the shoes of the citizens and understand what they need. That is something which we are largely lacking, although there are exceptions across the world. There are lots of exceptions. Now coming down to the micro level. So how does Article 29 plays out? Well, it plays out in our day-to-day interactions with each other, in our homes, in our workspaces, in society in general, in our community, and so on and so forth. And this is where Article 29, in a very subtle way, says that the responsibility and duty of every individual to protect the rights and freedoms of every other individual in the community or society they live in. It is their responsibility and duty. Now see how nicely it has been woven into the entire Charter of Human Rights. And it gives a reason. It says that because this is the only way in which every human being will be able to achieve the optimum growth and development. It gives a reason why one should fulfill one's responsibility and duty. Nowhere has the quid pro quo principle, or we keep saying do unto others what you want others to do unto you. Nowhere else have these principles been so subtly woven into a charter as it is here. As you said, it's a beautiful document. It is. And also, only when it tries to say that only when each individual protects the rights of the other, will the community and the society, or in the human rights of everyone will be protected. So it links with your behavior with that of the society and its natural progress. And this is a great example of the parts being added up to make the whole, and yet go beyond the whole. So the parts add up to more than the whole even. Now, so basically what is it trying to say? That when each individual flourishes, only then does the community and the society and the nation and the world, in fact, or humanity, in fact, flourishes. Now, Article 29, even without putting it in these words, actually is talking about peaceful coexistence. It's talking about collaboration. It's talking about cooperation and caring for each other. Something which, unfortunately, has just gone out of our lives in general. I mean, this is sad. The truth is, we are more connected than we actually realize or we wish to realize. You know that Indian concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. What is it? The world is my family. It's there. What lies behind the Ubuntu philosophy? You are, I am, because all of you are, because you are, because we are. And somewhere, somewhere we have missed out on all these things. And Article 29 somehow tries to put these things back into our heads. In fact, if we understand Article 29 well, it will be very, very easy to play out the UN SDGs on the ground. Somewhere we have missed out on that thought, and this article tries to put that thing back into our lives. In this, in this continuum of progress and development, we have actually lost touch with this philosophy, this essential philosophy of this way of life, and we need to get back there. We have become too self-centered, and what is called the kiasu mindset. Somehow we have brought that onto ourselves. We're always looking for external validation. So what has happened? In this kind of that social glue, that social bonding which used to exist, there's a mad rush for success. And what is success? It is the sum total of your wealth, your money, your power, your influence. So humanity has actually gone off the track. And so what does success mean? It means it is defined by what I have, right? We are always looking at accumulating. So as long as this becomes the trend, we are going to miss out on the human rights, because when we are running after this kind of a success, we are going to encroach upon the human rights and the spaces which we should have given to the others also. So this is a very important thing, but somehow I feel that the COVID crisis has somehow made us step back and realize all these things. It became very that our own physical well-being depended on the well-being of people with us, who live with us, and who work for us. No man is an island. We cannot think of an individual, an island, or in isolation. We simply have to care about each other. It has also made us realize that there is more to life than material acquisition. The tripping of the sensex and dipping and tripping of the sensex at one shot, the world has lost so much of wealth it accumulated over the years, right? And it has also taught us that wealth cannot buy health. COVID took away lives. It has become clear that money will not, and our wealth will not be an answer to this. What we need is to care for each other, to understand problems of each other. We have to empathize, we have to be compassionate. If we are encroaching encroaching on the livelihood of others, we have to step back and we have to give it a thought. And Article 29 talks about these things in a very beautiful way. It talks of coexistence in developing a culture of care, love, and harmony, affection, appreciation of everybody around us. And I think that is what humanity needs to do. But then at the same time, if you look at the beauty in it, it also says that your rights can also be limited under certain circumstances. If you are encroaching upon somebody else's rights, or in the need for greater welfare, larger welfare, or peace and law and order and all that, so it also imposes a limitation on human rights. So no human right is absolute. It is always relative. It is always relative to the human right of the person in front of me. So these are things which we need to understand. In fact, all the strife in the world is largely due to an uncapped sense of entitlement. We feel we are entitled to everything and we're not willing to do the duty part of it. We need to understand that others have rights also, and our duties lie there. And so it calls for a beautiful balance in the world. And I think in conclusion, I would like to say that as human beings, we need to understand that we swim or sink together. And therefore, rights, responsibilities, duties are all interlinked. We have to understand this. And we have already done a lot of damage, unconscious and conscious damage by our biases. So we need to come out of this and need to see the reality. So let us step back. Let us introspect a little bit now that you have raised this wonderful topic on this meaningful topic on this platform. And I feel as the most evolved and presumably the most intelligent species on Earth, we need to prevent destroying the planet and humanity by our follies. While we are trying to develop artificial intelligence, let us, let us stop using unnatural stupidities and follies to destroy the earth. There is no planet B, there won't be another human race if we are not careful enough right from now. Let us live and let's live. And I feel the time to start it is right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for this enlightening session by you. I have a question. Are you satisfied with the work of Indian police during COVID-19 pandemic? Would you like to add any suggestions for them?
Okay, I think after the initial hiccups, which all of us got to see, I think the police largely did a good job. But then again, can it do it better? Yes, there is always more room for improvement. And as I was telling initially, I feel much depends on how you're training the police. All COVID was such a new thing for everybody. Everybody fumbled initially. Everybody fumbled, and so did the police. But then gradually, we also did see they were trying to make up, they were trying to go to the community and assuage the feelings, the negative feelings which they are generated by some of those initial hiccups. And these hiccups can be taken care of if, as I said initially, we make a shift from accused-centric, right, and victim blaming, accused-centric, coercive policing to a more democratic, participative, and victim-centric policing. There has to be a big mental shift, and for this, they need to be trained first. So yes, they did do a pretty good job, but after the initial hiccups, when they could understand how it needed to be done. So that's it.
So thank you very much, panelists, and I really appreciate your efforts to afford so much time for this beautiful understanding and beautiful mission. And let's all together ignite our youth. Our mission is to ignite each and every child so that the new generation is very refined and very enlightened. The only closing remark which I want to present in front of you, there is a very thin line between the rights and the responsibilities. For example, if I have a right to speak, but once my speech is hurting others or it is against the dignity of a person, then it comes the responsibility. I have to be responsible towards the dignity of other person to safeguard that dignity of everybody. So this is all about let's be responsible citizens, and we should also ignite all the citizens of India and the world around us to be responsible citizens and to be aware about deteriorating resources and work for the UN SDGs so that we can safeguard our resources and give a better life to our new generations. Because this after 2030, this will never come a reverse situation. Things will be beyond our reach. So this is the time we should start working and we should be responsible. Apart from that, let's all motivate all the people not to violate human rights, because this is the only thing which creates intolerance and which creates an disturbance among the societies and disturbs the peace of any person. So let us promote peace and tolerance in our communities and promote sustainable development goals. So let us hope a sustainable world should be created by our young generations and to the young generations. Thank you very much, panelists, for
Thank you.
being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
and I have a lot of good feelings right now. I am energetic to talk to you, and I'll come back with more amazing panels with all world dignitaries and dignitaries from India. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
I have a word for Adam. I'm a great
Okay,
admirer
okay.
of, yes,
All right, ma'am. Go
I'm a
ahead.
great admirer of MS Arden. She's done a
Okay, great.
Yes.
fantastic
Wonderful.
job. Fantastic. She's one of
Over
those.
to you, Adam. Over to you, Adam.
Over to me.
Yes.
I think he heard.
Yeah,
I'm a great admirer of your Prime Minister, MS Arden. She's done a brilliant job during the COVID.
She has. There's the thing with I mentioned earlier, the team with 5 million people. What a great concept if you're a sporting nation.
And she's been facing
That's
one
very
after the other stuff. Anyway, thank you once again, and God bless us all.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. See you again. Bye bye.
Bye bye.